All right, I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Mastermind today. My name is Courtney Moses, and I will be facilitating the call this morning. I recently have been following Simon Sinek, who is an author. He's wrote several books. One of them, Start With Why. And he has a lot of really great insights on organizations and how they run and what makes them tick. And I was watching one of his YouTube videos, and I just thought it was really incredible. And he talks about the circle of safety, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today on the call. And so to kind of give you a little bit of an explanation of this, he talked about a group of troops that were working in Afghanistan, and there was a captain there, Captain Swenson, and he recently was recognized and received the Congressional Award for what happened on September 8, 2009. And what happened is they were working in Afghanistan and they were ambushed, and at this time, the captain would go and he would run in front of the line of fire, and he would rescue the wounded soldiers, these people on his team, and then he would bring them back to safety. And one of several of the troops had those GoPro cameras on their helmets, and so they caught some of this on video. And what he would do is he would run out in the line of fire, and he would grab his troops, bring them back, and then he would give them a kiss on the forehead, and then he would return to go and rescue more. And after all this was said and done, they asked him, they said, why did you do it? Why did you do it? And a number of these soldiers asked him, why did you come back for me? Why did you do this, And he said, his answer was the same to every single one of them. And he said, because you would have done the same for me. Now, this comes from a very deep level of trust and love for those that he served and worked with. And as I thought about this, where that feeling comes from, and as I thought about relating that to doTERRA, right? We all want our Captain Swensons of doTERRA, so to speak, right? These people that are going out there and they're doing these amazing things. They're hitting diamond in 60 days, or like going blue diamond in the month of July, right? Or like recruiting 20 or more people a month, and we all kind of look at them and we're like, man, I wish I had someone like that on my team, right? And so then it lends that question: is it there's people out there that are just better than us or better than other people? Or what is it that causes this? And this is where Simon talks about, this is the environment. And he says if you get the environment right, then everyone has the capacity to achieve greatness. And so what I want you to do, everyone, I want you to pull out some paper or close your eyes and think about this for a minute. Well, I'd prefer if you had paper. But what I want you to do is I want you to draw a circle in the middle of your paper. And in that circle, put in safety and then put in your name, okay? So this is the circle of safety. Now, within this circle is you. You are the leader of the circle. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to think about and list all these things that are on the outside of the circle, right, that we try to protect, right? So the circle is our circle of safety. It's us. It's our leadership. It's our business, right? So what are the things that threaten that? What are the things that threaten our success in doTERRA? So for some reason, I'm going to go ahead and open up the call, and we'll just I want you to write this down. I want you to just personally think about what are some of those things. Like I thought about things like, I thought the FDA was a threat. Competition, other businesses are a threat. Sometimes the economy can be a threat, or your life circumstances. Maybe it's family members. Maybe it's financial. Like what threatens your success in doTERRA? And I want you to think about that and list all of that around the outside of your circle. Now, for all the diamonds and above, I want you just to start throwing out some things that you feel threaten the success in doTERRA. So most of you should be unmuted by now. So any other things that come to mind, like what threatens the success of your business?
Well, Courtney?
Yeah.
I think for me personally, I think it's family.
Family. Okay. Explain.
So I have the family that I've been raised by has some serious negative limiting beliefs. And anytime there's anything wrong that we're just discussing, or maybe I turn to my mom for some support or for some guidance, it always turns back to doTERRA being the reason why everything's going wrong. Without fail, it doesn't matter what is failing. I could have maybe even burnt a pot of And it was probably doTERRA's fault.
Oh, it's doTERRA's fault, right.
So that's one big thing that's something that I am constantly, and I know why we're doing doTERRA, and so because of our beliefs and why we do it, you know, we're still doing it. But that is something that's probably the strongest thing to shake me is my family.
Great, thank you. Any other things, like we've come up with a few already, what other things you feel threaten the success of your business, or maybe you've seen it within your team, like what threatens the success? Any other insights on that? And everyone else on the call, I want you to just be thinking about that personally too. We're just going to help, you know, list a few of those for you to help you kind of get started there.
Courtney?
Yeah.
So my mind went to a totally, I guess, a different space. Like I don't see other things as threats other than my own mind. So pride is a major threat. Laziness, comfort, wanting to stay in my comfort zones. You know, I mean, it's really all of my character flaws that are the biggest concern for me.
Right. Right. And I would agree. A lot of us probably feel that way too, right? I mean, probably a lot of people on this call are sitting there thinking about, well, I have support of family, or financially I'm okay, or whatever, but what stops me is what goes on inside, right? So
yeah, but I
wouldn't
wouldn't
even
even
bringing that up because it's vulnerable.
But I wouldn't even say, like, I'm not, you know, it's almost as if I would say none of that really matters. I mean, with the exception of, okay, so like if I had friends or you know, I don't want to say that Brianna's wrong because to her that's very real, but in my case, if my family were to say to me, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, I'd be like, well, screw you, I don't care, I'll do it anyway. You know, I mean, that's not really it for me as far as like how they are perceiving me, but it's really like my own inability to get out of my own way. You know, because if I'm not right in the head, then everything becomes an excuse. You know, everything becomes an obstacle. But when I'm right inside the head, then nothing is an excuse and nothing's an obstacle. With the exception, let me just say one thing where I think there is a major exception here. And that is when, well, for example, when I see people like you who are, you know, in particular, a single parent with little kids or kids in the home that are at a critical crossroads in their life, you know, that's where I start. Those are, I don't know if they're excuses or not, but that's when I really start believing the excuse, because I'm like, oh, of course. I mean, you need to make sure that these things are taken care of, right? And so that's a major obstacle that I've seen people try to overcome, and I have a hard time helping people overcome those obstacles because I'm so sympathetic towards that. On the other hand, I remember when Pramila, you know, shared her experience of when she went diamond, and she just destroyed every excuse that anybody's ever had. And
that's true.
And here she was, this single parent living in a homeless shelter without a car, without any family support, without a network of friends, without literally a penny to her name. And, you know, her daughter offering to sell her Barbie doll or whatever, or toys to help buy her starter kit. I mean, you know, and then, you know, and then she started walking to her appointments in Wisconsin in the winter and the snowstorms, and she thought she was being such a terrible mother. And she looks back and sees her kids just totally having a ball walking through the snow or splashing in the puddles, and realizing, you know, maybe I'm believing some of these, you know, these excuses. But that's certainly where I'm so sympathetic towards that I start to, my mind just, you know, I stop finding solutions and start looking for excuses when it's in that particular situation. But other than that, it's my pride, it's my arrogance, it's my inability to be empathetic. It's, you know, it's all these different things that start coming in on, like, those are the real obstacles for me.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to take one more. Pramila, go ahead.
So I that's a great topic, and I think it's very timely because I've been struggling with this. I've just felt, very stuck in my business. All the things that I was doing before that worked are not working as well because I think, the business evolves. When we started with doTERRA about 3.5 years ago, my family and I, it was a different environment. It was a different market. There was a different level of awareness about essential oils, and there was a different tone to the doTERRA culture. The leaders that we looked at to guide us and inspire us were different. We have different voices now. We have a lot of noise. We have a lot of opinions. We have a lot of things happening, right now that, weren't there a few years ago. And so, trying to look at what I was doing before and not realizing that my market has changed and, that I have to change in order to continue to lead my team, that is one of the things that's important. It's like we're stuck in our old ideas like, hey, this is how I got there. And so therefore you need to do this and think this way and believe these things in order for you to get there is going to threaten your business because, and it's not just that everybody's lives are different and everybody's realities are different, it's that the market is different. Consumer awareness is different. And so not recognizing that, I think, is a huge adversity or a huge block. And another thing is being true to who you are and being congruent and being very clear about who you are. One of the biggest things when I hit Diamond was very stressful. You think, oh my gosh, I'm so awesome and happy. Well, it was like I was kicked out of my island when I hit Diamond. I was no longer in my little oasis, and I was kicked into this wide world of where all these diamonds lived. And, in order to hit Diamond, I mean, all these huge personalities. And, I got to get very, an intimate insight into what many diamonds were doing on a monthly basis, what many diamonds were thinking about, what kind of activity was going on in these other teams. And I began to feel, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not doing that. Am I a bad diamond? Am I a bad leader? Am I supposed to be doing that? And for a while there, I forgot who I was, because who I was what my team needs. My team needs me to be the best and strongest version of me, not an awesome version of another diamond. And that can really threaten your team if you try to be somebody that you are not. It's great to be inspired by other people. But my story and my struggles and all of that people talk about, it's not the same. It's not the same for everybody. Emotions are emotions. We feel defeated. We feel frustrated. All that is constant. But we need to understand that we are enough and that we have the way. We have the answers. And that we don't need to look at ourselves as deficient just because we're not doing the things that other people are doing. We just need to do us really well.
I love that, Pamela, and it leads right into really where I want to spend the remainder of our call on, so I appreciate your comments. So for everyone on the call, I mean, by now you should have your circle drawn, your safety and you in there, and then, all these other things on the outside that have been coming up for you that you feel are threats to your growth or success in doTERRA, okay? Now, Simon talks about this, and he says, the only variable are the conditions inside that organization, right? So that is where leadership really, really matters, okay? So we have all these things that threaten us. We can't control a lot of that, right? But what we can control is what happens inside, right? And the leader sets the tone. So if the leader can create this environment that there's full of, love and trust, and there's this safety there, then that allows, everyone in that environment to be able to work together to bring your talents and your strengths and collaborate and work together and achieve the greatness that all of you want, right? And so, I mean, you look at this, let's get real. In order to go diamond, you have to have a minimum of 4 people that you're working with, and each of them have to have a minimum of 3, right? And you all have to be working together. And if you are not creating this safe, environment of love and trust, then it's really hard to work together. And we see this. We see times, and some of us have experienced that you're not working well with other people on your team. You're wishing maybe you had different, teammates, or wishing you can attract different people. And really it comes down to you. You are the one that controls all of that, right? So like leadership is a choice. And leadership, the conditions of that are within that circle. And so we have to learn to control that. So what I want to focus on then is this topic of leadership and creating that safe environment, right? So don't think about leadership as a rank, like, oh, you're a diamond, and now all of a sudden you're a leader, or a silver and you're a leader. Leadership, when you're a leader, that's because you chose to look after those people in your organization, not because of the rank, right, but it's because of who you are, right? You can be elite, you can be a diamond, or anything in between. But you're willing to go first, and you're taking risks, and you're making sacrifices, and you are paving that way for other people to follow and to work with them, and you have their back, right? So I want to talk about this then. What are characteristics, or how do we as leaders, no matter what rank you are, create the environment that brings in the people and grows people at the level that we all are looking for and wanting? Does that make sense? So questions or comments on that? How do you create that environment for everyone to be working together and achieve that greatness?
If you have a very strong focus on creating a team culture that's based on some fundamental core beliefs, what are your core beliefs as a team? That is part of creating your environment. It's a team
So how
culture.
do you create your culture then, Pamela?
Well, it's in the words that we use. It's in activities that we have and the spirit in which we embark on those activities. And what we celebrate, who we celebrate, why we celebrate them. Are we celebrating people who have the highest number of enrollments, but there's exception? You know what I mean? It's that, it's like, what is your team culture about? Is it about enrollments, or is it about retention? Or is it about continued education, or is it about, mass marketing? Is it about, getting enrollments because we are giving off crazy promotions, or because we took the time to companion someone on their journey? What is our team culture that creates an environment in which people can stand behind long term, or just stick around for a while and then get bored with it and leave?
Right. And then that's just it. Like, people stick with you because of that relationship, and that relationship, affects that. You can't have a healthy relationship if you don't have that healthy environment, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it comes down to that environment and that relationship you have with people, and how you've created that keeps people going, right? I mean, all of us have experienced people that started building and quit, or, you know what I mean? Like, all of this. And it's like, oh, we're heartbroken. We want them to come back, right? And I feel like we have to look at our own actions and what we're doing to attract or repel, those people. So I love that you brought that up.
Thank you. This is a great topic.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments on that?
Hey, Courtney, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. We and Seth, this is something that I've been discussing with Seth a lot over recent times. I've had to have some pretty straight conversations with different people in our team, and Seth, I was chatting to him, and I said, mate, like, if people know that you care about them, you can pretty much, and the intention is for what's best for them, you can pretty much say whatever you want that's on your mind, as long as it's in their best interest. So we Rosie and I have a bit of a different leadership style. I don't know whether it's because we're sort of on the frontier of things, but we're pretty direct. Like, I've walked out of classes in front of leaders where people didn't want to learn about the product, they just wanted to learn about opportunity. I've got up and said, well, if you're not willing to learn about the product, I've got no time to talk about the business with you. So we've found the best way to create culture is by leading by example. And I had some pretty strong mentors in my early career in finance, and probably the most powerful thing I ever heard was the fish rots from the head down. So you can never ask your team to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And we're very strong about that. And we share, if you're not willing to go and help someone, don't enroll them. If you're not willing to turn up and help them, don't enroll them. So we lead by really strong principles, and I don't really pull any punches in relation to that. And people just know where they stand in our culture. There's no fakeness, there's no indecisiveness. Something that's really important to Rosie is authenticity. She just calls it how it is. Some people don't like us, some people like us, and there's everything in between. But the thing about it is that our culture and our team is really, really strong. And there was just one thing I was going to share before in terms of the threats, and this is how you can really focus on the culture is, and this is where leadership comes in, and is we have this propensity of certain people in our team. They'll go and read some blog by the Mad Muesli Mama or some other really credible source, sarcasm intended, and so the one thing that we've really had to lead over the last sort of 12 months with some of the minefield of the blogs and stuff like that is that you don't need a license to write anything on the internet. You just need a keyboard and an internet connection. So that's been something that we've really had to proactively lead because there's just so much rubbish on the internet. And that's one thing that we've had as a little bit of a threat until we informed people to actually look at the motives behind why people were writing things. So I think from a cultural perspective, it's just critical in your leadership style. And I suppose it's the chicken or the egg. What creates is it the culture defined first, or is your leadership style defined? And I think given my background, probably the critical thing is I worked in some really crappy, stressful environments, and the only thing that held it together was the culture. And we utilized, this is one thing, and Seth can attest to this, is and I know you're familiar with the crocodiles, or the nature of success course. It used to be crocodiles, not water lilies, from the late and great Roger Anthony. And it's just a commonality of language that he taught, where everything's principle based, and it really helped us through time. So there's two things that come to mind for me. Is there's a thing called an integ, is where you've got something that's challenging between two people, where you need to get something off your chest, something of an integrous nature, and then there's something called a repu, which is wrapped up poo, something that's been festering or a challenge that you haven't shared with someone. So we're pretty big on that we just create straight and open lines of communication, and we don't allow pockets of like poison to fester in the team. And we're really transparent with the team. I think that's critical. Like for so long, I tried to hide how challenging at some stages last year were, and it just was fake. And they're like, well, and then they're like, oh, well, it's easy for you because you don't have a full-time job. And I'm like, I can get a full-time job to just show you that I can still do it. And sometimes I feel like I should, just to have some structure in my life, because and it's going to be interesting to hear the difference between the men and the women. I think one of the biggest things that I've had a problem with as a guy in this is, like, my wife created a lot of our doTERRA business, and it's like, where do I fit? So I know it's a different topic, and I'm probably rambling on a bit, but I think the key thing is to be bold in your leadership. Stick true to who you are. Because the thing is there's, 7 and a bit billion humans on the planet. We take out, even if there's 90% don't qualify, there's still about 800 million left. There's going to be at least 1,000 or 2,000 that have similar mindset to you. So that's what I would share. I don't know if any of that was coherent, but
no, it's great. That's fantastic. I think you bring up some really good points, and I love that you talk about the transparency and that, you have certain principles you live by, integrity and having those frank conversations with people if there's toxic in the organization. When I think about this, I started thinking about my my journey with doTERRA, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I've gone through some pretty difficult things and things that I feel like threatened the success or my dreams, right, in this journey.
Yep.
And it honestly came down to that environment and that relationship I had with my team, those, you know, all around me, above me, side of me, below me, you know, that really kept things going. And because there was such a huge circle of love and trust and safety there. Like, we knew that we would have each other's backs, right? And I've seen this, and it started from, you know, from the very beginning, you know, when I had it, you know, Julianne Ellis that, you know, like needed, you know, she's 8 months pregnant and going to have a baby in a day. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do this, but, you know, I'm going to need help, right? And so we all rose to the occasion. So we started developing that circle of safety very early on in the organization, right? And then I remember there was another time when, you know, Janet Marquez was going through a hard time, and we were all there to help her. And then there's time that I went through a hard time. And I remember, you know, specifically the day that, you know, I called my leader and I'm like, Seth, I need help. I have these classes lined up and I'm just emotionally cannot teach them. Like, will you come? And if I remember right, like Seth had just gotten back from, I think it was Australia, and literally hadn't even gone back home yet, just got off the airplane and just kept that car going and came to Idaho to help me in that time of need. And when I think about this and I think about that story about Captain Swenson, I'm like, that's the environment as leaders that we start creating, that we've all achieved greatness together, right? And when we stop showing up and we stop doing those things, like, I feel like that's when all of a sudden there's a crack in that environment and when things start to go down, right? So I'm like, so I ask myself that, I'm like, am I still showing up the same way I did 5 years ago? Did my people know that when they go through a hard time that I will still be there for them and have their back? Or have I become selfish and just too absorbed on working on me and getting through my own life, you know? And I'm going to be honest here and vulnerable and say, yeah, I feel like the last year I've been a little selfish, right? And so as I look at my organization and I think, why am I not progressing? It's because I've lost that circle of safety and love and trust for my team. And I've had to, you know, I took a step back and now I have to come back and repair that, right? So when we look at this, it's like, what are those things that we're doing to help build that relationship with people that they know we are there for them through the thick, the thin, and, you know, help each other achieve that greatness together, right?
Yeah,
so I love
you're
about that.
100%. You're 100%. Like, I got up at I don't know, I can't remember what country it is. I think it was in the Netherlands or something back in February, and I said, and we just finished solidifying Diamond, and I said, like, and I don't mean to upset anyone, but I said, look, guys, Diamond's a selfish rank, because if people are just silvers, like, yeah, they might have a car payment made, but they're not like high-fiving and going to Jamaica on holidays every 5 minutes, and you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And blue, you're starting to, because you've got 5 golds. Gold's a nice place for people to be. Like, what's the average income in the US? A gold's about 50 G's, 50K a year. Like, that would be an average sort of income in Europe and the US and stuff like that. Maybe not in Manhattan, but, that's probably, from my perspective, it's just like, I can really relate, like, that conflict between, okay, we've hit the goal of Diamond, and Diamond is a title, you know what I mean? And wanting to celebrate, and then you've almost got to heal again. Like, we're in between Diamond and Blue at the moment, moving towards Blue, and it's a whole different ball game. Whole different ball game than Diamond. Like, we had to change a lot to get to Diamond. We just did dumb and excited to get to Gold, and then to get to Diamond was so different. But I've had to be kind to myself. Like, I went back and started seeing a counselor because like Seth was saying, like, I like to control stuff because I have had some rubbish happen when I was a kid. No, normal stuff. We're all messed up somehow, and I like safety, and you've got to remember, I'm an accountant by background, so I assess risk, and I'm like an SAS guy with a calculator, and I'm trying to work out where the challenges are, but that's not very conducive to building a duplicable team, and who I am doesn't really work well with women that like to use Claricam or Solus or whatever it is. So it's trying to unwind the crap. So it's not as if Diamond isn't the destination, and
Right.
And like this counsel lady said, you just got to be kind and gentle with yourself. And I'm starting to learn that. So I think that's something with what you're going through is just reconnect. And I'm going to shut up and mute myself now, but hopefully some of that was helpful to someone. So
you're great, Adam. Don't mute yourself.
Cool.
You're good. All right, thank you. I think it's true, though. We have to pay attention to how we're treating ourselves and how we're treating all those around us to create that space. Alonso, you're next.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I do love this topic. Simon is probably one of my top guys when it comes to just understanding human behavior and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And with this question of how do you create this circle of safety, it's really exemplified in the 300, right? So in this aspect of this king, right? Like Adam has said, and in the demonstration of really what you're asking your team to do, what you're asking your leaders to do, and in this example, the 300, it's like he was leading by example, like he was in the battlefield doing all the things that everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But what made it strong, what made the 300 strong was an epiphany for me, was when it comes to their shield, the aspect of looking out for the person to the left of them and looking out for the person to the right of them. And they didn't have to be this amazing person on their own, right? They just have to be amazing as a group. They knew their responsibilities, they knew their gifts, they knew what they needed to do, and they worked as a team to get the job done and form one of the most powerful formations called the phalanx. And that was the entire thing behind it, is that with the shield, when you're putting it together and you're looking out for someone to the left of you, to the right of you, you're able to create this impenetrable force, so this circle of safety. But if one of them is broken, if one of them is not able to kind of put up that shield, then the entire thing falls apart. So looking out and really not putting out this, you have to be this amazing person to be a leader and to create this environment. No, all you have to do is to have that capacity that I'm going to at least look out for two people. I'm at least going to look out for the person to the right of me, to the person to the left of me. And as I do that, our formation sticks together and it holds strong. And that's kind of what we've been doing in our organization, is really identifying people's strengths and people's gifts and talents and allowing and fostering that to be able to grow and grow, so that we're not the only ones as the leaders doing the work. We're working together as a team, as a group, to form this amazing formation to be able to defend against those threats, to be able to warn against all the negative things that kind of come into play. But it starts with really, like Adam was saying, you have to be the example. You have to kind of put out what you're wanting other people to do, and then follow suit in that. But also foster that trust. If you go out there and you lend that trust, you're like, I'm going to battle with you because I know that you're going to look out for me, and I'm going to do the same thing for you.
Right. And I love what you said there, and, helping with that visual a little bit more people. And so when you think about that, I love it. It is so much of a team effort here, right? I mean, it just is. There's so many people that have to work together to create these ranks like diamond and blue diamond and presidential, right? And, when you think about what you said, I look out for the person on the left of me and the right of me. If I can just look out for these two people and have their backs, then all of us can stay strong and united together. So give me like maybe 2 or 3 examples of how we can look out for each other in doTERRA. Like, how can we do that then in doTERRA?
So when it comes to, so this is like a mind shift when it comes to how we deal with normally in like the corporate world and how most people deal with it to what we've come to kind of find as success, right? And how most people like deal with kind of doing that is focusing on like skills and limiting people to like take that control, right?
Okay.
But for us, we foster a focus on values. We focus on that aspect and then giving these people, empowering them with the right tools and resources to be able to go off on their own and take that risk without any fear of repercussion, without any or with the encouragement of being able to take those risks. Because in the corporate world, and I've experienced this when I was in engineering, is that a lot of the things that were like good ideas in my mind were never put out there because like it was always told us like, oh, that's never going to happen. You're never going to do that. You're never going to find success doing that. But making the shift to looking for those people that have those ideas, looking for people that have those dreams that they want to take a risk on, and encouraging them to be able to take that step and providing the tools and resources that sets them up for that success.
Awesome. Thank you, Alonso. I love that.
And to kind of give a concrete example, one of the things that we're doing is bringing as many people to Tony Robbins' event on November. So utilizing like the contacts that we've had to make it so that it's cheapest for everyone that's going, so that they can at least afford it, because it's such a powerful and an amazing transforming event that produces breakthroughs and unleashes like the power within. And that's the title of the seminar. And we're doing whatever we can in our what we have as far as resources to get them there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alonso. All right. So as we look at this, then I want everyone to like think about your organization, right? You just ask yourself this question: is this the environment I would want to work in? Right? And I think we have to ask ourselves that time, right? Am I creating the right environment? Is this the type of environment I would want to work in? And then we can attract and bring those people in that we would work really well with. So again, I just want to ask the question, how do you create this space or this circle of safety and love and trust with those on your team that you all can be united in working towards your goals together? All right, you can hit star 5 star to raise your hand. All right, we've got a lot of diamonds on the call. I want you to think about that and let us learn from you. How do you create that circle of relationships with people on your team to be able to work together and accomplish your goals together?
Hey, Courtney. It's just me again. I'm going to try and channel some Alonso here. I love the way he speaks, so I'm going to try and not sound like verbal diarrhea on the call. One thing is, in terms of creating that safety, is that so many times when things get tough, the leader disappears. So and this is funny because I learned, like, by the way, being part of Team Edge is awesome. So I was with the corporate director of Europe, and he's like, so who do you prefer? Do you prefer Seth or Rod? And I said, well, if I was in a war, this is the way it would be. Rod would be the guy at the back analyzing, telling us what to do, and Seth would be the guy 100 meters in front of me with his shirt off with a pitch axe and a tomahawk in his hand. And knowing that he's got my back, like Seth turned up at some pretty terrible times for us, and he's always had my back. So the thing is I know that if things get tough, he's got my back. So how do you do that? You turn up when things are hard. So when someone's making some noise and threatening one of your business partners and saying that they're part of a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme in some rural part of Ireland, you turn up and you confront it head on. That's how you create it, by not being absent when things get hard. And the one thing that I am learning to do is celebrating in the good times.
Right.
So you've just got to turn, and that's really going to define the safety aspect, and that trust and that care is if you're there when things get tough. And that's the only way that you can get the trust.
Well, it is, and I even think about, I'm just sitting here thinking about Alonso and Desiree. Like, how did they show up in the month of July? You know what I mean? And they go blue diamond in the month of July. Like, how better of a way to help create that safety for people? Like, you can still do this even in hard times, right? And so instead of, going through and living the excuses like the rest of us, they're going blue diamond in July. So, I mean, that is a way of showing up when things are difficult, right? There are just seasons that are difficult, and how you show up during those seasons are going to inspire your team and continue to create that safety of circle for them that they know is still possible in that relationship with them. So I love that you brought it up because it made me think of them and what they've accomplished. David Ellis, you're next.
So I just had to turn down the TV. We're in a RV heading up to, we're in Idaho right now. So you guys didn't want to hear Paw Patrol, so I was getting that turned down. I actually lowered my hand because what I was about to say is exactly what Adam just mentioned, which is the whole idea of communication. Communication is the key. Whenever that breaks down, it becomes difficult. Relationships struggle, misunderstandings, expectations, all that kind of breaks down when the communication breaks down, and that's one thing that we have identified is an area that from a leadership standpoint is something that personally that I struggle with, and it's being able to identify, okay, this is where I struggle, which we're a mirror of our team, right? So if I'm struggling there, then my team is probably struggling there as well. And so, creating an environment where people want to be associated and want to be involved is really, it's as simple as taking a step back and opening up the communication to find out what people need. How do you want to be reached out to? Are you somebody that needs a daily, that you need a daily just, handhold or pat on the back or kick in the butt, whatever it is, you need that daily, you need that weekly, you need that monthly. Are you somebody that just, hey, I'll come to you, just watch me. If you see something, let me know, or where are you at? And that all starts with communication. And like Adam said, when things get hard, are you there? Is the communication opening up when it's difficult and when it's good? It's easy to talk to somebody when their business is just cruising along there and everything's going great. It's like, hey, yeah, awesome. Just keep going, and that's something that for us has been a challenge because, particularly, summertime, you're off vacations, people are down reunions, they're doing all this stuff. And so I think that's one of the reasons why sometimes summertime can be difficult if you're going to use it as an excuse that way, which a lot of us do, unless you're Alonso and Desiree, because it is more difficult to keep those lines of communication open when we're all traveling and vacationing and on the road and here and there. And I know that that's been something that we have struggled with, and that we're recognized. It's so important. It's so valuable. And it's imperative if you're going to keep, like you're talking about, that environment, that team environment, that place where people want to be a part of. They want to be engaged in, because that communication is open and it's flowing, and it can go both ways. It can be positive, and it can also, when you're struggling, that you've got a place, that you've got a safe place that you can talk, and that you can strategize, and that you have somebody you can go to, that you feel like you're not going to be judged. I think that's important. If you feel like in any way, shape, or form that you go to somebody with an issue or with a challenge, that there's going to be judgment, or there's going to be this negativity in any way, then you're going to be less likely. And so we've got to constantly be open. We've got to allow ourselves to be available as leaders. Whether you're an elite and you've got a few customers you just signed up, and you're just looking for that first builder, or you're shooting for presidential and you've got a larger number. It's that allowing yourself to be open and approachable and supportive to these people in whatever way they need you to show up with. And that comes from understanding your people. As you've got to know them, you've got to understand them, you've got to build those relationships so that you can show up in the way that they receive that. And that's pretty imperative. And it's something that we're all working on. I don't know of anybody out there that has a corner of the market on that. I know it's important, and I know it's something that we, Julianne and I particularly, we're kind of going back to the drawing board on that as well. And how do we do that better? How do we improve? And,
and I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is difficult, when you are, like I said, when you have so many other things going on, sometimes it's difficult to keep that communication going. Or sometimes, there's not communication because your leader all of a sudden is taking ownership of their team, and they're just like rocking and rolling. And so then you're like, wait, I'm going to go work in this other area. And then the next thing you know, that communication's gone. And then there's that trust and that love, that circle has been broken. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I think that communication is probably one of the top things that can break that environment. So I love that you brought it up, because I think it's important to always have that communication with people and understand them and their needs, so we know how to show up for them. I love it. All right, Lindsay, you're next.
Hi. So I kind of wanted to share a little bit of a screw-up story on my behalf that I've had to fix in the last 3 or 4 months, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I know it's a dramatic one, but when I was diagnosed with cancer before Diamond Club hit, I decided I was going to keep it a secret. And the only people who knew were Desiree and Sarah. And I was terrified to tell my team, because then, I wasn't going to be there for them 100%, and all this other crap stories that I was telling myself. So from some of the things that my baggage comes from, you put on a smiley face and you just do it. I mean, I'm a retired military, so, you just make it happen. It doesn't matter how it happens. You just do it. And that has hurt my team in so many ways. And I've been working for the last few months to try to fix that, because I realized that me not being authentic, and even though it was a struggle that I could have kept personal, and it wouldn't have been any big deal if I did keep it personal. But the fact that I didn't show them my true struggles, and guys, this is hard. It's hard to decide to, do whatever it takes to make this happen. It's hard to put your real self out there, but people want to follow you because of who you are and what's happened to you and how you overcome it. So I'm not saying that you have to have some huge crazy story or anything like that, but being completely authentic, 100% yourself, and becoming the best version of yourself that you can be is what is going to have your leaders be with you, regardless as to whether it's an up, it's a down, or whatever it is that they're going through. they're going to be able to understand when you tell them, okay, this is what needs to happen. And even when you have to call into the carpet a little bit. I mean, I've got two of my leaders were in the military with me. So, it's okay if we need that kick in the butt sometimes. And some people aren't like that. So learning how to live with people's true selves and accepting them for who they are. But you can only do that if you're being 100% authentic with them and your struggles. And I think that people need to know how hard some of these things are, and that's something that I've learned, because I'm definitely put on a smiley face and act like the world is full of rainbows, and it's just not. And that's because I was completely closed off about everything that I was struggling with and not telling them, because I was afraid that they were going to think I couldn't be there for them, or they couldn't lean on me because of what was going on. And that's completely opposite, because when I finally shifted that and decided that they need to see me in the dirtiness, they need to see that I'm yelling at kids to quit licking windows while I'm having a really deep conversation with somebody. They need to see that I can do that. And they need to know that they can do that too in their mess. So show your mess so that they see that it's not rainbows and sunshine, and that it's not always going to be pretty. There are going to be things that come up that you can come through.
Yeah, and I appreciate bringing that up. There's definitely, a limit there of what to share and what not to share, what we expose in our lives and everything. But, you bring up a really good point. And I remember being a little bit embarrassed, in the beginning of my journey when, Seth and Rod would talk and they would tell some of the stories, about me. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, don't tell them that. I look like this crazy mom. And you know what I mean? I remember, feeling a little bit embarrassed. And I had to just learn to, embrace it. This is my journey. And this is real. This is raw. This is what it's like. And that's what's inspiring to people, is when it is real, And so I love that you bring that up, because, people feel like you're being fake, then it's hard to trust them, right? And it's hard to want to be in that environment. But when they feel that it's just raw, vulnerable whether it's good, bad, or ugly, they want to be there with you. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you. All right, we're just about out of time here. We've got two more hands that we'll take. We're going to go to Pramela and then Seth.
Hi. Being congruent and, wearing your heart on your sleeve, those were my main points. And, the person before me mentioned that with beautiful clarity. So thank you. So what I have to offer is just to, reiterate that, being congruent and wearing your heart on your sleeve is very important. That transparency breeds transparency, and you can't really, create an environment or a culture in your team if you don't know who you're dealing with and what they need and what they want. So the only thing I wanted to add to that is, having very clear boundaries. In this business, we sometimes forget that, we have to have clear boundaries, and setting clear boundaries is essential for the team to be efficient and to work well. And clear boundaries means that, in the sake, of being liked and being looked upon as this nice person, or, the person who will give their shirt off their back, or, who will show up, or whatever it needs to be that you want to be seen as, doesn't mean that you compromise on what is healthy for you and what is clear for you and what is healthy for your team. So, clear boundaries on my team looks like this. I have zero tolerance when it comes to any kind of coaching of any way, shape or form. I have, we have very strong boundaries on being respectful of one another's resources and time and energy. We have very clear boundaries on being very mindful of the way we speak to each other. We have very clear boundaries on understanding that the value of a promotion is not on the monetary aspect of it, but it's that it is a gift and it's not an entitlement. And I have had to make some very, very strong and maybe in some instances unpopular leadership decisions in telling my team that their behavior is not okay and I will not tolerate it, and if they don't like it, that they can create their own team culture within their own group. It's a very difficult decision to have to say that, because you want to be able to have a peaceful environment for everybody, and make everybody happy. But when you try and make everybody happy, the sense of justice, your sense of justice will be compromised. And, so I just wanted to bring that into play that, it's not just about being in service to your team, but also being in service to your sense of justice and your sense of boundaries and having very clear guidelines on what your team will and will not tolerate, because this is not an everything goes kind of life. You have a choice to define your life. You're not working for someone else. You are manifesting your legacy. Own it. Be proud of it. Don't ever compromise on who you are and who you want to be in the eyes of the people that look at you as an inspiration and as the way that they want to be as well. So don't be wishy-washy about it.
Thank you. Love that, Pamela. All right, Seth.
All right, Courtney. I've been sitting here listening to all these people for quite a while, and I'm so excited about everything that they're saying that I'm trying to remember what the original question was.
Oh my gosh, great way to end.
I think I know.
Okay, so,
I think I know what it is. I think I know, but it's like, go ahead and say it anyway.
Okay, so I was just talking about creating that environment of safety and love and trust. Like, how do we do that for our team?
Oh, sure. Well,
or are you going to say whatever's on your mind?
No, I mean, I think that what we're talking about is culture, and like you're talking about how to set a team culture. And, the fact of the matter is I think that the important thing is to understand your set of principles that you lead by. So what are the principles that you live your life by, and what are the principles that you're going to lead your business by? And don't walk into it guessing. Like, be clear with it. And that's one of the things that I think was a major advantage for me when I started in doTERRA, is that, as Adam mentioned earlier, we had, and you, Courtney, we had all been part of the Crocodiles course, the Nature of Success course. And that's a set of principles. There are these principles that I can start to govern my life by and govern my decisions by. And the thing that's awesome about knowing where your principles are is that you become consistent. And when you're consistent, you can become trusted and it feels safe. Even if the person doesn't agree with where you're going, they can trust you because you're consistent in your principles, right? And so I think that's probably the most important thing is, like, in fact, I remember back when I was, probably elite or, not even silver yet, but they would say, well, what do you need to do in this particular situation? And I'd be like, oh, well, and I would just kind of spout off something, and they're like, where did you get that? I'm like, oh yeah, I got it from here. And it was just it was just a set of principles. And so I think the first thing is be principle based. Understand what your principles are, and then lead strongly from that space. However, let me also just say this in regards to creating that safety that people are looking for. Like Pramila just said, I think that you also got to realize that when you lead strongly from correct principles, or even if they're just correct for you, that's going to attract the people that are like you, and it's going to repel the people who don't like you. And that's okay. And I think that you all have to be very okay with that. That I look at people like,
you should be excited about that.
Sure. I mean, look at the people in the company like Elise Chedevy and Haley Hobson. They are probably at the same time the most loved and admired and the most hated and despised in doTERRA. and it's because they lead so strongly in a direction that attracts a lot of people, or it repels a lot. And I mean, look, we're right in the middle of a presidential season, new candidates fighting, and all that. Well, guess what? Half of the people hate one candidate and the other half love them. And at some point, those leaders had to decide what their principles were, and that they were okay with the fact that millions would despise them because they knew that millions would like them. And that's just fine. And so when you begin this journey, just know what your principles are, build a culture around those principles, lead strongly, because it's going to attract the people that you need into your life. And I think almost even as important, it's going to repel the people you don't need in your life. And be okay with that. Don't feel like that everyone has to agree with you or whatever. Just know what your principles are and stick to them. And the other thing I want to just say in regards to all of this, like with what you're describing in the whole gist of this call, is have a big vision. Think huge. I remember when I started thinking in terms of, I actually want to have a team with 1,000 diamonds. And the minute that I started thinking in terms of that, like, okay, this is what I want on my team is 1,000 diamonds. Then I realized, okay, this can't be about me trying to hit my rank. This is about me finding and developing leaders who can help find and develop more leaders. And what kind of culture and what kind of vision can I help provide to allow that, to foster that kind of belief in people and to get them thinking on that kind of level. And when you start thinking about that, I mean, it takes you out of the rut that most of us get in mentally, where we just start thinking about the mundane things that we're doing every day. And when we're caring so much about what other people think, I promise you that if you start thinking big, you don't have time to worry about what other people think. Except for those who matter, who matter to you, what your vision is. And so then you start, again, applying those principles. And the other thing that's fantastic about doTERRA is you get to find out real quickly if the principles that you believe in are true or not. Because doTERRA is like this awesome experiment where you go, okay, one principle is to be integrous. And you go, let me go try that out. And you go try it out, and guess what? If your business grows, it was a true principle. And if it implodes, then you realize that the principle is wrong. And so, you know what? Make sure that you're building it on true, correct principles that are time-tested, that you can take all the way to heaven. And anyway, so those are my thoughts on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone else that's participated and been on the call, and for all of you that have joined us. And, I just would close and just say that, leadership is a choice. It's not just a rank. And regardless of where you are in your business, if you don't make that decision today to think big, like what Seth is talking about, and, to have these principles and like to be bold in them. I mean, all these principles we talked about today, become the leader now and create that environment. And you're going to make sacrifices for your team. You're going to love them. You're going to have their back, and in return, they're going to have yours. And together, you guys are able to, create and reach all the goals that you want for each other. And you're going to create an organization that all of you want to work in, and that more people want to be a part of that. So I wish each of you a very happy and successful week, and I hope this has been helpful for each of you. And we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody.